Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Shout out to the 19 folks. We've got a little Sheryl Swoopes. There it is for you. Yes, a little more Sheryl. She's got some interesting things to say, but part of it isn't simply because it's Sheryl and going after Sheryl again for her nonsense, but it speaks actually to a larger issue that I found kind of fascinating recently with the WNBA and the Indiana Fever and this whole idea of fandom and what fandom is. And so I want to go through this. We'll talk about the absolute nonsense that Sheryl Swoopes is spewing here, and then also the fandom issues that she gets into, which of course is ridiculous. But I have some questions for all of you about what she says and the larger picture of what fandom is. It's kind of interesting, or I think it's interesting anyway. Hopefully you will as well, because I am curious to what y'all think about it. But first, we're going to dig in a little bit to what she said on the Gilbert Arenas podcast. Now, the clip is kind of cut off here at the beginning. So just to set it up for you, they're talking about issues going on with the Indiana Fever, and Sheryl comes right in with she just lights a fuse of nonsense. Okay, so we're going to play that through and then we're going to talk about it.
Oh, that's not my point. There's a lot of other shit going on that players are like, this ain't where I want to be.
Over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some new shit going on around there.
It's a lot. So you have players that are very significant on this Indiana Fever team that are like, I don't
want to be here.
This is where I want to be.
Yeah, Nalissa.
What you said, there's a lot of shit going on. What kind of things you said?
I'm not in the locker room.
Okay,
okay.
But just,
I'm talking about more social media.
Okay.
Wow. That is a bombshell. Now, there's a couple things, and Sheryl Swoopes. I'm sorry, but Sheryl Swoopes is not a good human being. That's what it comes down to for me. She is hateful. She is a liar. She is deceitful. She can't stand Caitlin Clark for breaking her records. That's just. But that being said, if you ever get anyone, and this is why I forget who it was that got all tough about Stephen A not having her on his show. Well, first of all, why would he? But second, I don't think Sheryl would go, because if you notice, Sheryl only goes places that don't push back on her. And this kind of threw her. You can see right there, completely exposed. And exposed her, and I forget his name. Darn, because someone mentioned it in a previous video in the comments, because I asked the gentleman that works with Gilbert Arenas, the one with the laptop, who actually did what Gilbert should have done right away, being the host of his show, asked her the question, what is it you're hearing? Give me specifics. And she had none, right? She went from players, plural. She knows players are unhappy in Indiana. The locker room's a mess. Players, significant players, do not want to be there. That is what she said. She was very definite about it. She said it in a very definitive manner that she knows. So she must have firsthand knowledge. She knows that multiple significant players don't want to be with the Indiana Fever. And then when the gentleman says, well, what do you hear? And she says, oh, I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm not in the locker room. You're a child. You're a child who has yet to figure out how to lie effectively to their parents. And they need the parents to either just nod and believe their nonsense right away, because if they ask a question, it all falls apart. It's fascinating. So anyway, Rashad, what he was trying to get to, and I want to point this out because people will probably bring this up. He said Nalissa. Yes. But obviously, Sheryl's making it sound like it's a huge locker room problem that is more than Nalissa. And by the way, the other thing I'd like to point out, because I think it's important to this story, from everything that I have seen, again, as someone also not in the locker room, but from what I have seen, from what I have heard from other people, multiple sources, from Nalissa's behavior herself, this was before Caitlin Clark. Melissa has already been unhappy with the Indiana Fever, and there was talk, like, even preseason, that Melissa was going to be gone and, at Golden State or something like that with the expansion. So this has nothing to do with Caitlin Clark and the current situation with the Fever. So I don't count Melissa in that. And as you notice, she went right to, social media. Well, I would like to see the receipts of the players players. Okay. So if she wants to include Melissa, I think that's disingenuous, but okay. But that still means other players. Show me the receipts that other players are saying they're unhappy and they don't want to be there, because I have not seen that. And as you can tell from Sheryl, when she just got the tiniest bit of pushback with the follow-up question, she didn't have an answer. It all fell apart, right? It was like, oh, well, I don't know. I'm not in the locker room. Well, then you should have never said what you said initially, but you wanted to throw that out there because you are I don't even want to say child at this point because it's an insult to children, but you're just a hateful, insecure, petty, jealous human being who needs to destroy Caitlin Clark by any means available to you. And it's sad. It's really, really sad. You've become a sad human being whose life is wrapped up in hatred of a 22-year-old basketball player who happens to be very popular. It's weird. And I know I'll get the crazy comments about, well, I think it's weird that you cover Sheryl Swoopes. Whatever. Cheryl's a content creating machine, so we thank her for it. But let's dig in a little more because we got some other interesting stuff being said here, folks.
Right.
It's a turn, right? It's really a turn of the tides.
Well,
right.
Gil, here's my point. The beginning of the year, right? Everybody saw it. The Fever played, I don't know how many games.
6.
Shit, but tons, right? They played a lot of games the first half of the season.
Yeah.
And you can see the difference that rest made for this team, for individual players and for the team. But the beginning of the year, you have a player like an Aaliyah Boston, who was Rookie of the Year last year, #1 draft pick, a hell of a player. But because things weren't going the way everybody thought they should, then you got social media coming out calling her everything but a child of God. Made the kid delete her social media. And now that they're winning and she's playing better, oh my God, we love you, Aaliyah.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Sheryl Swoopes, you supposedly were a professional basketball player. You got paid to play basketball. Let me put it that way. The basketball in question is a little, but hey, whatever. You played. You're telling me that going through your entire life as an athlete and playing a major sport like basketball, that you don't know that fans of a team or player will be critical of said team or player when things aren't going well and cheer when things are going well? Seriously, that's where we're going right now. Just to be clear, because she's going to dive into this a little more. And this is what I really want to get into, which I find fascinating because it just kind of exposes some weirder stuff going on with the WNBA and the Indiana Fever and fandom. But of course, Sheryl is using this, and I'll play this a little more, and you'll see what I mean in terms of how manipulative she's being here. This is crazy.
my thing is this. So what happens when Aaliyah ain't playing well again?
It's back to
Like you know what I mean? And so as a player,
back to it. Back to
as a player, do you want to continue to stay in a situation where you keep yourself vulnerable to all of the hate that you know is going to come to you if you're not playing the way everybody thinks you should be playing?
But the grass ain't
greener. And that's
greener.
even people who don't know basketball.
Grass ain't greener on the other side. You go to another team thinking it's going to be different. It's the same and everything.
But if you're a player, and I'm just using Aaliyah as an example because Aaliyah is not a free agent. But if you're a player like an Aaliyah Boston, you know the worth you bring to any other franchise. Now, and you know how that works. Not every player who's a free agent should leave because the grass probably ain't gonna be greener for you.
Facts.
But a player like a Kelsey Mitchell could be very valuable to
anywhere. Yeah, facts.
The deceit and the manipulation at the end. Because look, I don't think Sheryl Swoopes is a very intelligent human being. I don't say that with any malice. From everything I've seen of her, I don't think she's all that smart. But she is very manipulative. And you saw with where she went there. Oh, and it's not even it's not even the grass is greener for some. Some people should stay. And then, oh, but Kelsey Mitchell, because she wants to get Kelsey. I mean, Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark. Could you imagine if they had a decent coach and maybe, a I was going to say a player to replace Melissa, but even a Melissa who's on board would, I mean, tearing up the league, and she can't have that because of her hatred for Caitlin Clark. But first of all, Gil needs some help, man. I mean, he can't be a host of this podcast because he's like, turn tides, and Cheryl had to save him because he had no idea where he was going with that. And the fact that he's quiet during this, having played professional basketball. And Rashad kind of made the point about the grass not being greener. I think he should have pushed a little harder because this is where I get to how absolutely absurd it is. She's saying this as if she's really concerned about Aaliyah Boston. She got booed when she wasn't playing well, and then now she's playing well, and they're cheering. And but what happens if she starts playing bad again? What are we gonna do? Oh my lord! Fandom, fan, short for fan. I mean, please, people who have been fans of other teams and players in sports, please help me with this. I'm not going crazy, right? How is it that she's really pretending not to understand how fandom works? And I mean, in Philly, I can go way back, and my dad would talk about it. Someone who's got crucified figuratively, obviously, by the fans. Mike Schmidt, Hall of Fame third baseman. Some still say best third baseman to ever play the game. Absolutely one of the best. 500 plus homers when they didn't take steroids and it wasn't easy to hit 50, 60 home runs a year. The guy was incredible, gold glove fielder. He got booed all the time because he type of player he was, power hitter. He went through some nasty slumps and he got booed. Ryan Howard, another World Series champ for the Phillies. Another big power hitter who could look really, really bad in stretches, got booed by the Phillies. And look, Philly has a rep, and it's a deserved rep in terms of how hard they can be on players, but it is because they are an incredibly passionate fan base, and they love their teams, and they love their players, and they want to support them, and they want them to do well. So when things aren't going well, and they think there's also an effort issue, man, you are going to hear the boos. But look, it is not just Philly, and I think all of you know that. As a Philly fan, one thing that I always find amusing, especially when they say how tough Philly fans are, is I look at Dak Prescott in Dallas for the Cowboys, who gets destroyed. The man puts up monster numbers every single year, but he has struggled to win in big games, and they don't have those playoff wins. So he gets destroyed. And guess what? That is what happens to all of them. This whole idea that a fan base is awful if they're critical of their own players or if they boo their own players at times is absolutely absurd. Bryce Harper just signed I guess about 4 years ago now, signed that massive contract, 300 plus million to play in Philadelphia. He could have gone anywhere. And the guy already wants an extension because he loves it so much. Do you really think Bryce Harper didn't know what he was getting into with the Philly fan base? But Bryce Harper is a passionate player who wants to win. And so he loves playing for a passionate fan base that wants to win. And he is therefore okay with getting booed when he's not playing well. It's normal, folks. And this is what I want to get to all of you, especially because, and I know that I'm going to get some hate for saying this. One of the things I've seen that I find a little odd with the Fever fan base, and I should say a small subset, because I consider myself part of the Fever fan base, and I am not like this. But I've seen with someone, and look, it may be because of pushback, like all the hate that it is received by the Fever because of Caitlin Clark, right? Directed at other players because they're trying to divide, and so I get it. Maybe they're just more sensitive to it, but I see a lot of them that very, very upset with Fever fans that say anything that could be construed as negative towards a Fever player, anything that could be construed as criticism towards a Fever player, and they get mad, and then they will consider the people who said it to not actually be Fever fans. And again, it's just a few, and I know I'm probably going to be like, oh, how could you? But I mean, do they not get and if you're one of them, please hit me up in the comments to have a conversation about it, because I'm not bashing anyone. I find it fascinating. I'm trying to wrap my head around where this idea came from that you can't boo or be critical of your team or players as if that's a negative. That has been around as long as sports. It's part of being a fan, as crazy as it might sound to some people. It is part of being a fan. In fact, I would have loved to set up some other stuff, but this was recent, so I'm gonna use this. For those of you who don't know, this is Myles Garrett, Cleveland Browns, heck of a football player, and he was asked. I think this was last week, I don't know, a week before. I think the Browns getting booed for the way they played, which, I mean, come on, you give that kind of money to somebody like Deshaun Jackson, guaranteed. What was it, 200 plus million that was guaranteed to Deshaun Jackson, and he's really hasn't played all that much, and he's been terrible. Cleveland Brown fans have a right to boo. But that's my point. I want you to listen to how Myles Garrett handles the question about being booed.
Do you think, I mean, do the boos still hurt, or do you feel like the fans have a right to boo in a situation like that?
They have the right to tell us however they feel. Because, I mean, if we're not playing well, they have the right to boo. If we're kicking ass, they got the right to cheer. It's their privilege. They come in, they pay to see us do well, and we didn't. And we got to put on better performance if we expect them to go out there and support us in full force. So we got to be better, and that's all on us.
That's fantastic. I don't understand how people don't get that. I mean, it's just part of sports, and I get, hey, being booed's not fun, but you don't play well, you get booed. You play well, you get cheered. I guess if that's not something you're okay with, maybe don't play sports. I don't know. But to the Sheryl, I'm gonna wrap it up here. But I really am curious about this because I've never until now with the WNBA, I've never heard this idea of fans can't boo their own players if it's some absolutely horrible thing and players should leave if it happens. But again, like Rashad said, because he understood, and I can't believe Gil didn't, any player that leaves a place where they're getting booed is going to get booed where they go if and when they're not playing well. And I got to tell you, because I know she's so manipulative, which is why she threw in the Kelsey Mitchell thing at the end. What I was really trying to figure out is I don't know if it's a mix. Does Sheryl actually believe that, and then she uses the Kelsey Mitchell to be manipulative with it, or if she just completely doesn't believe anything she just said about fans and booing. But I mean, she sounded like she was actually upset, like, oh my gosh, what if she doesn't play well again and they start booing her like it's the most horrific thing the world has ever seen? But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for checking out this video. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I will talk to you later.